everyone. I was thinking this morning how I've been divorced twice. And even though it was a long time ago, I realized I really learned a lot by both of those marriages. But I also learned a lot about both divorces. And so why not share what happened to me? Because hopefully I can give you some tips if you're either thinking about getting married, are already married, or are getting a divorce. And I do admire all of you who have been happily married. I think that is a tremendous achievement, and that is something I've never experienced. And I probably could have if I'd made better choices, but there you go. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. And I have my notes here, and I'm holding my selfie stick, so I hope it stays still enough. I apologize if it wiggles a bit. My first suggestion, and I learned this in my first marriage, is that even though you have married someone else, it is of great benefit to you to remain self-sufficient. If you've already been working, don't give up that job. Don't give up that career. And in my best way of suggesting to you to never be completely dependent on another person. Now, I was working full-time while I was married in my first marriage, and even with my daughter, I took her to daycare. However, I had given all of my money every week to my husband to manage, thinking that, well, he knows better how to manage our finances than I do. And since he's paying all the bills, I don't have to worry about it. I'll just give him my paycheck, and that will be that. And I think I kept a couple $100 a month for myself, but I spent it on the baby, and I had very left over for myself. And that was mistake number one. Looking back, I should have had my own checking account, my own savings account, and I believe we did have our own joint checking, but it was minimal. It was for very few things because he primarily kept his finances completely separate. And if you can believe this, I didn't even know what his earnings were because he told me, never mind, you don't have to worry about it. We're doing great. And I accepted it. Now, he was a very successful man. He was also very intelligent in the way of business. Yet, he would sit inside his office and close the door, and I had no idea what our bills were, what our mortgage payment was, what our house was even worth, what the equity was. I didn't even know what equity meant. And as we purchased other properties, I had no idea what those mortgage payments were either, or what assets we owned. I had no idea what our cars were worth. I just left it all up to him. And for a smart girl, that was a really dumb thing to do. Because lo and behold, when I decided to divorce him 17 years later, he hid all of his income, or at least he tried to. And when we engaged in a custody fight over our daughter, all of a sudden, the wife that had cared for our child for years, had paid for the daycare and did all the things that babies need and children need, all of a sudden, he claimed in court that I was a terrible mother. And that was completely astounding to me, how someone could be so vicious and so dishonest. Well, I won the custody of my daughter. She wanted to come live with me, and it did have a happy ending. But be careful of that. And here's another thing. When I filed for custody, that wealthy husband, who I had no idea how much money he had, called me and said, "You'll never win. I have more money than you." And you know what? He was absolutely right. But what he didn't know was that I pulled out 5 credit cards and I maxed them all out to win my daughter in a custody fight. Now, when you're married, you don't have any idea of the future, but there are hints, especially about money. And please know that it's very important to maintain your own individuality, your own circle of friends, your own income, and never be solely dependent on your spouse, financially or otherwise. And I made the mistake of just letting him handle everything and being completely ignorant of what our assets were and what his income was, which was, oh my gosh, 10 times more than mine. Yet I went merrily along for years and years until reality hit and divorce court happened. And all of a sudden, my ex-husband, soon-to-be ex-husband's true colors really shone brightly because all he ever cared about was the money. And so I hope to encourage any of you who are maybe in a marriage right now and maybe you're not working or you don't have your own savings account, even if it's just a little bit of money here and there, please start putting some money away, either in a safety deposit box, put some special trinkets away, or special things that you want to keep to yourself. And give yourself a special bank account just for your own, just for yourself. You may never need it, but then again, if you ever do, it's there. And I did not do that. And I will still remember to this day what my ex-husband told me when I left him. Because what he said was, "You're leaving with what you came with," which was absolutely nothing. And he honestly meant it. So true colors come out when you're getting a divorce. And when you're sitting in court with your lawyer who you can barely afford, and your wealthy husband is sitting next to his, who he can very well afford, be ready for the smear campaign and all the lies, and hold on to your seat, because it can get really wild and really vicious. And I survived it, and I'm here to tell you the important things that I learned, and that is to have your own bank account, have your own job, never be completely dependent on that person. Now here's another thing I did. I had the ability to have a 401k, and I know that 401ks went south recently or a few years ago, but I had the ability to have a matching savings account at my business where they would match every dollar for every dollar I contributed. And I declined because I thought, no, I'm comfortable in my marriage. My husband makes good money. I'll never need that. Well, never say never, because boy, do I regret never having done that. So if you ever have that ability with the corporation or the company that you're working with, please don't assume anything. Please take advantage of that opportunity and save your money, even if it's something small to start out with. It accumulates over time. Now, also, insist on seeing all the bills. Insist on knowing what your husband makes. And share what you make. And even if you do have a joint bank account, don't put all your money into it. And I remember walking to the mailbox one day to get the mail and when I was stepping back inside with a handful of bills, he took them from me. And I said, I'd like to open them and see what we have. And he said, never mind, Barbara. I take care of those. Did I speak up? No. But deep down, I should have. I should have stayed outside and opened them up. But no, I just let him handle everything. And that was a huge, huge mistake because I put myself in such a helpless mode when I should never have been. And when I got divorced, I had no idea how much money we had, what our homes were worth. And I ended up truly giving him everything because it was way too stressful to deal with his lies. And so in the end, he won. But he only won money. He didn't win what I won, which was my freedom and my peace of mind and my daughter and my happiness. Well, the daughter thing didn't work out because now I'm estranged. But at least I did my part in trying to support her for as long as I could. And for what it's worth, it's probably for the best that she's moved on with her life and considers me now irrelevant. Because I certainly have a wonderful life now. So I take everything that's happened to me with a positive spin, and I hope that I can use my mistakes to offer you tips if you're in a similar situation. Now, the second husband, what did I learn from this divorce? I learned that, again, true colors really come out. Because the day he punched me in the face was the day I realized I wanted a divorce. And actually, I had just told him that. And that's what caused him, I believe, to hit me in the face, punch me in the face. Now, in divorce court, and to the police, and to his own family, he completely denied ever doing so, and that I must have fallen down the stairs. Now, divorce brings out the true colors, not only in topics such as money and assets, but in terms of an abusive partner. Because a coward will never admit what they did, and without proof, a judge will have trouble deciding who to believe, especially if you don't have a history of abuse. And I had had a previous restraining order prior to that incident, but he had talked me out of having it lifted, promising never to be abusive again. And hoping that he was right, I went to court and I lifted that restraining order, only to have that result in more violence. So there's another tip. If you have a restraining order on anyone, even if it's not even your spouse, please don't allow them to talk you into going back to court and lifting it. Because most times a judge will, only if they're convinced that there is no possibility of future abuse, which I adamantly expressed to the judge. And boy, was that wrong, because the abuse not only continued, but it worsened. And so that's another tip. Keep that restraining order, no matter how they beg you to lift it. And if it's one of those temporary ones, go back and make sure it's permanent, regardless of what that person tells you. And stick to your guns and hold true to that true sign of abuse, and don't go back, because that was the mistake, one of the mistakes I made. Now, one of the things that I ignored before I got married was one of my husbands used to, actually both of them, talking very demeaning about their ex-wives. And I think I mentioned this before as a red flag when not to get married. And that is just so important, because ultimately they're going to scream about you to someone else. And no matter how much you think it'll never happen and you're happy and he says all these most wonderful things, or she, please know that that is a behavior that is part of their personality, and a coward will always be a coward, and a liar will always be a liar. Now, getting married is fun, it's easy, and if you get married in a court without a fancy ceremony, it doesn't cost very much. But getting divorced is more expensive than you'll ever want to experience. And I actually had to claim bankruptcy after divorcing my second husband. So make sure you know what you're doing, or better yet, don't get married in the first place. Or if you are already married, it's wonderful if it's working out. I so admire anyone who's found a respectable person, because that's what we all want, and that's what we all hope for. Now, here's another thing to watch out for, and this happened with my second marriage. And let's see, getting close to 20 minutes. Be wary if your husband takes issue with you having your own friends and spending time away with your own friends, especially if you are at a park and just enjoying an afternoon with a friend, and all of a sudden your husband drives by completely out of the blue. Please know that they are very insecure, and they're checking on you because they could very well be worried that you're cheating. And you know why? That's probably because they are. And my ex-husband did that to me, and I was humiliated because I was in a park with a friend. We were actually riding our horses together, having a wonderful day, and I was completely humiliated that he had driven a half an hour out of his way on his lunch hour just to say hello. And it was completely ridiculous, completely out of line. And when I became angry, he was furious that I even dared question why he did that. So please know that you are entitled to your own friends, your own life, your own social circle. And if he doesn't trust you, that means he's doing something that isn't trustworthy. And that's a huge tip for anyone, whether you're married or not. And I learned that too late as well. So there's my tips, and there's probably some more, but getting divorced was extremely stressful because of the way these men turned on me in terms of the lies, distorting the truth, the way they hid their income and their assets, which were really mine too, and purposely created stress for me, hoping that I would break. And in the first divorce, that's exactly what happened. And I ended up giving him everything because it was too stressful. But in the second, I stuck to my guns, and I successfully divorced this man, and equally gave him his own share of the house, and was free and clear, thank goodness. So I hope these tips are helpful to any of you. And being married, I believe, is just a way too much of a legal process. I do believe in happily ever after. I do believe in the goodness of people. However, it was my own poor choices that caused me all of this. And had I had the self-respect and the self-awareness to choose the right men, most likely these things never would have occurred to me. But because I picked the wrong men, these situations happened. So I hope this was helpful to someone out there. And if my failures can give you a tip or a heads up in something that you're dealing with in your life, that really makes my day. So please feel free to ask me questions, leave a comment, and ask me anything what you'd like to ask about. More about my marriages, what I think I could have done differently. And yes, I did have an ominous feeling that I should not have married the first man, but our daughter was a year old and I wanted to be a family. Yet, in hindsight, I had my own income, my own insurance, and I certainly could have been just fine on my own with my daughter. So please never worry just because you're a parent that you have to marry someone uh, just to make that a family. Because a child does not make a family or a happy family. Respect, love, compassion, and honesty makes a family. So thanks so much, everyone. I hope you're all having a really great day. Take care.